This is my video for round 2 of UtahSBK. After a short run between round 1, where I replaced my fence with my dad, helped to run a track riding clinic at the nature trail, and got 3 people set up to come down for their first rounds of racing, round 2 came back on the perimeter configuration, the bane of anyone down on horsepower, which I most certainly am compared to all but a few bikes, even in my class. This time I was helping Flint to race in the super street bike class, where bikes are essentially road bikes with safety wire and a belly pan. He was running this class because removing his Triumph Speed Triple headlight and tail light would put his bike into limp mode. Removing these parts is required for the full race classes. Running only this class is also a reduced cost at UtahSBK. I was additionally helping Brennan and Walker, who hope to race in the near future, probably next year, to do the Street GP. This is essentially a 3-session combined B and A group track day, where licensed racers are also mixed into the bunch to make sure that everyone is behaving on track as you ought to during a race. Things like not reacting to passes, making clean moves, and following general racing etiquette. This is ended with a 4th session where a mock race occurs. Everyone groups up and grids as though you would for a regular race, and then an untimed race is run. If you complete 2 of these Street GP events, you can petition the board for a race license rather than taking the NRC racing class. This meant that I had additional stuff coming down in the trailer, food for 4 or 5, drinks, a cooktop, all that kind of stuff. We made it down there on Friday night around 4:45 and spent the next hour or so getting our stuff teched. I had to swap my tires back to the Dunlop slicks from the Q5s additionally. Then we got our pit area set up and I did a track walk. I had shown everybody the track from my helmet video and Google Maps for the outer layout. However, in person it was much better to go over everything for the 2 people who had never been to Utah before and the one who had only seen the east half. There were additionally 2 patches that I was unaware of prior to the track walk, one in Sunset and another in Knockout. These patches took downward dipping bumps and turned them into smaller but slightly harsher upward bumps. I'm not a big fan right now of these, but that's definitely a familiarity problem and not an issue with the patch jobs. These are pretty good patch jobs and it's just not what I'm used to. Saturday started with some very slow practice sessions. It was nice to fly through the front half of West. However, I was still 5 seconds off of my rabbit in JoJo. I was doing 2 minute and 37 second laps while he was doing low 2:32s in practice. This did not particularly bode well for the rest of the weekend, but last time on East I dropped 10 seconds over the course of the whole time, so it wasn't the end of days. I just didn't feel great about it. For the first race of the weekend, there was Sportsman, and the Sportsman grid lines up behind Super Street. This means that I would be on track with Flint. At UtahSBK, if there is a 2-wave start and there are only a few bikes in one of the 2 waves, the bikes will be sent at the same time. Pretty much every other Sportsman rider seemed to forget about this, and a certain other rider had an issue on the start. This meant that I had the whole shot all the way down the front stretch on an R3 versus people on bikes ranging from other R3s all the way up to a ZX-10. I promptly got zoomed by when other sportsmen with more juice and skill realized that they were supposed to go when the light went out. It was a fairly uneventful race, and I did go a bit faster than practice at 2:34. The next race for me was the lightweight race. These starts can really highlight how much of a power difference everybody else has compared to me. A lot of the people in this class are on ZX4s, and they just fly away. Unfortunately, it's not just power differential. That should probably only be worth 5 or 10 seconds on this configuration. I'll come back to how I stack up in the wrap-up, but it is what it is. The race turned out to be fairly uneventful. I just ran laps and got a bit faster. 2:33 was my best. Race 3 was the Moto 3 event. It was a fairly exciting race for the wrong reasons. Coming through Dreamboat on lap 2, I picked up the throttle and got a strange drop in resurgence and power.
What the fuck?
That felt something like a high side initially. Coming into Blackrock, I was downshifting and completely lost connection between the engine and the rear wheel. While I was rolling, I looked down to see if my chain had popped, even though it's an R3 and it's a 1-year-old 520 chain, so I shouldn't have any issues. When I saw that the chain was there, I knew that the issue was my countershaft nut. I have 2 gear stacks for the R3, one using a 13 tooth and one using a 14 tooth front sprocket. It depends on if it's perimeter or not. The stock R3 has no secondary sprocket nut retention system like a lot of other bikes where there will be a clip or a cotter pin. It just uses raw torque wrench. And I had appropriately torqued this nut to 55 foot-pounds. Clearly, being full throttle for so long and aggressive downshifts did not agree with 55 foot-pounds. Fortunately, I was smart in 2 ways to outsmart my stupidity of just using the torque. For one, I used the countershaft sprocket cover, meaning that the nut and the sprocket stayed with the bike, just loose on the countershaft. I had previously seen on forums that people would commonly use R6 countershaft nuts on the R3. Because they can be staked, Norton sells these nuts, and so I had bought one and was using it. However, I didn't want to deal with removing the staked nut after this one round because it's the only configuration that I use the long gear stack for. This was a mistake. After coming back on the wrecker, Cole with Precision Fab came over and immediately started to help me out. He took off my belly pan to dump the rocks and stuff while I got to tightening down the countershaft sprocket nut. I had 25 minutes before the endurance race started when I got back, and during this time I pulled the sprocket cover, grabbed my impact, sent the nut all the way home, staked it, put the cover and belly pan back on, brimmed the gas tank, and head out on track to get things set up for the endurance race. This time, my plan for endurance was different from last time. Last time, I was saving for the first 70 minutes. This time, I didn't know if I would need to pit, and I knew that JoJo would not need to pit. Therefore, my only hope would be to full push and build a gap. This did not work. My full push pace was multiple seconds slower than JoJo, and I simply could not keep up. Clint was on the pit wall giving me gaps every couple of laps on my whiteboard, and when I saw that I was catching up toward the middle late of the race around 60 minutes, a 25-second gap had dropped to 20 seconds. I kept going, pushing at 100%, and set my best lap of the race, a 2:29.9. The next lap, however, after 70 minutes of 100% push riding, I made a mistake, lost focus going into one, and had to go wide into the dirt. Everything was fine though, I kept it upright. It simply dropped me back to a 36-second gap. I had crawled back to just 18 seconds before going off. Over the next 5 laps or so, I caught back up to an 18-second gap. However, this was just JoJo looking for me and keeping his pace moderated. Coming into right hook, you can see people going through Scream, and so when he was entering right hook, if he didn't see me, he would ease off and just slow down. It makes complete sense. If I was in the lead, it's exactly what I would do. It just sucks that I'm not fast enough to keep up. Hopefully I will be on West. On what turned out to be the lap before the white flag lap, my fuel light kicked on. I was going to signal pitting that lap, but I was coming to the white flag and figured I either run out of gas on the last lap and the cooldown lap, or I pit coming to the checkered, which is just stupid. So I ended the race 18 seconds behind JoJo, and it was a far cry from the last, 8-lap, 20-minute battle in round 1 where I finished a half second back. At least I finished the whole thing, and I only had one big off track and one into the runoff pavement in Black Rock, and it was very tame. It was very boring and simple. I wish it was a little less boring. And it's also good to know that I can do 90 minutes on perimeter, at least at my pace currently, on 1 tank of gas. And I now know how the fuel gauge works. Before this race, I was unsure of exactly how the fuel gauge worked. It works that there are 6 segments on the dash, and the first 6 segments tick down. It'll get to the final segment, so it'll show 1 out of 6. And then emergency fuel light is when that 6th segment begins to blink, and it will put up a distance of how much you've gone since that 6th and final segment has started. So there's basically 7 segments, and one of them is the blinking 6th segment of fuel. So, it is what it is. Hopefully it doesn't matter. If I burn the same amount of gas as I did on perimeter on West, I'll be just fine, and West doesn't have a, half-mile plus straightaway, so I should be fine. At the end of this long day, I went and had dinner at Bonneville Brewery with the Privateer Industries crew. Mark Taylor gave me some good advice about using the whole track and to, quote, look where I want to go until I know I'm going to get there. He had seen that I was looking consistently too far through the turns and that I would fail to get all the way to the inside and outside of corners, therefore not maximizing the track and maintaining a maximum corner speed. Day 2's practice was another 2:33 best, and it was followed by the 700 Twins race. This was another opportunity to try and cling to JoJo. It was also the race that I was able to beat him in at the last round. Unfortunately, I came up 2 seconds short, but on a good note, I set my fast lap of the weekend at a 2:27.968. I was closing down throughout the whole final lap, and I just couldn't make up nearly 4 seconds in a single lap. Next was the lightweight race. Again, I tried to latch on to someone, but I was just kind of done with the weekend at this point. The last few weeks had been full of, oh, you just missed it kind of moments at softball, with the fence, with other stuff, and I could just feel that I was getting angry, and I didn't want to crash myself for who cares in a race that doesn't mean anything, chasing someone and something that was simply not in the cards with my skill level for this weekend. I did end up doing a 2:33.3 best lap and immediately regrid for the Sportsman and Super Street race. Again, Flint and I were on track at the same time, and this time there was no start shenanigans, meaning that everybody at least understood that we were supposed to go when the second flagger left. Everyone quickly separated in this race. Flint was very hopeful to stick with Sam Fisher on an S1000, but between skill and power, he simply couldn't keep the position. It was fun to watch him try and hold on to it through the front half of West, though, before they pulled away from me and my 35 horsepower skill issue. I've got first in the Sportsman race, but it's really a race that's garbage time win. It's a class for people who've never run faster than a par time on any configuration, and it's the second to last race on a Sunday. Everyone just wants to go home, and there's no championship points for this class. There's no glory for winning. It exists for people of similar speeds to get on track around other bikes of similar speed so that you can get used to racing conditions with people of a similar pace, irrelevant of what bike they're on. I know that people will say things like, it's not how, it's how many, or whatever. Cool, dude, that might work for you, but to me, steel clubbing a guy who's having a hard time getting his mojo back after a really bad crash, and a girl who's just starting out and struggling to find pace, are not particularly rewarding wins to me. No one in the endurance race goes, oh, it was hard to beat Gary, that's an earned win, because it simply isn't. The next best guy is 20 seconds up the road, and then everyone past that is laps ahead. It's just not a race. You're running a race against yourself at that point. It is not a race against the other riders. Races like these just put another asterisk in front of what will be the first time I actually win or get a podium on pace against people who are riding well. After that Sportsman race, I was done for the weekend and got to packing up some. The Missoula crew went and had dinner and came back and chilled with the Bozeman boys, Arthur and Jack, for a while. Then it was sleep time. Monday was a pretty smooth drive back home, a bit of unloading, and then I went off to softball. It was a doubleheader night, and they would not stop hitting it to left center, so my exhaustion just kept mounting. Fortunately, I only had one bad play out there and made a few good catches. We won both games, and all in all, it was a pretty good weekend, despite some disappointing results on the track. Evaluating myself against the other bikes in a similar category is quite challenging on perimeter and at UtahSBK. Sure, I'm the top R3, but one of them has an engine that sounds kinda rough, and neither has a particularly fast rider. For this comparison, I've picked the top lightweight rider of the weekend, California Superbike School, Prestige Worldwide coach, and AMA racer Mark Taylor. Unfortunately, he's 21 seconds ahead of me on a ZX4RR, and Parker Boos on an Ovali 250, who is 12 seconds ahead of me. That is a crisp 10 seconds or so of non-horsepower, pure riding skill that I'm missing, no matter how you want to slice it. I've picked these two because Mark was the fastest guy on a lightweight eligible bike, and Parker because he is the fastest guy on something that isn't a ZX4RR. There are people signed up on quote-unquote Ninja 400s, but I struggle to believe that they are 3 to 4 seconds short of Mark on the ZX4RR, while they are on the Ninja 400 Twin in this track configuration. Maybe they are. There is one, Parker, who could be, but I just have a hard time believing he's 2 seconds slower than Mark on the double R. It's got 70 horsepower instead of 40. That's part of why I've picked these riders. Mark's best lap on his ZX4RR was a 2:10.871. That is an 83.84 mile an hour average. Parker's best lap was a 2:17.389, which averages an 80 mile an hour average, basically. My best was a 2:27.968. This puts me at 75 miles an hour, so 74.16. Around 5 miles an hour slower than Parker, and just about 10 slower than Mark. Could I find 5 miles an hour in some of the corners? Definitely. I think Sunset, Dreamboat, and Workout into Scream could all be 5 miles an hour faster. Once I roll on, and roll on earlier in one, I just can't roll off the whole way through. It's that easy. Don't roll off. Duh. I just need to find the balls to do it. However, from Black Rock through to the end of the Attitudes, I don't have the confidence for that to happen. I would need to go deeper on the brakes and keep more top speed in the corners. The whole weekend, I also never went through the Attitudes particularly well. It was generally pretty terrible. I could never get to the apex of the first Attitude right, and that blows the entire sequence. To will a turn could be 5 miles an hour faster. Again, this is a pure balls and confidence thing, as well as doing what Mark said, use the whole track. Clubhouse is a challenge, because this would generally need pushing the brakes on deeper and carrying a little more roll speed. This could be done with more confidence, but I'm not 100% sure of it. We'll see in round 4. Wind up can definitely be done, but right turns really kill me. I just gotta let everything hang off of my left leg and lean the bike over more so that I can just send it. From there, release is a throttle issue. I need to stop messing around and just get to the gas soon. 5 miles an hour is certainly not findable on the front straight. Yes, it could be a bit faster, but there really just isn't any more juice in it. Shifting super late did help quite a bit. Not that it was pulling better prior to shifting at, say, 12,500, but it would set up the next gear to be better in the power band for that gear to pull. Instead of shifting at 11.5 and dropping to around 9K, for example, I would shift at 12.5 and only drop to 10K. This was definitely noticeable in how the bike would pull through 6th gear, or at least not drag as bad. Thank you to Joe. It was a good call on moving my shift light and paying extra attention to it, especially on the straights. It is free time. I tried to do it everywhere, but with my long gearing and lots of muscle memory based on the sound, I was shifting early in many places other than the front straight. Thankfully, the next round in August is on West. It'll be a long break before coming back, but hopefully I can come back and put in a decent showing for the year on my strongest configuration. Between then and now, I'm helping to do corner working for Superbike School at UMC, July 2nd and 3rd. Otherwise, it's back to the gym 3 or 4 days a week to keep up that endurance energy and keeping the mental game sharp. Thank you for watching. Enjoy.